بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا مولانا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا ترضى عنا بها يا رب العالمين. أما بعد، إن شاء الله تعالى, the first thing I want to do today is to read through the text of Imam Abu Shuja for the last class. So, inshallah, if we have the books, inshallah ta'ala, we're all open. On which page is it? So, that's which is in section of. Then, so the last we read over. Yeah, the last thing we read over was we didn't read the divorce. Yeah, in Arabic. Okay, so we'll take the divorce and then ila. Yeah. Bismillah. We'll read the text of Abu Shuja, inshallah ta'ala. Rafiq, do you want to read, inshallah? If you read Arabic,
divorce is of two types with respect to the phrases used. Firstly, explicit, and secondly, illusive. Three phrases are explicit: divorce, separation, and parting. Explicit phrases.
So three phrases. What do we say? These three phrases are what? In which language? In Arabic. In English, which ones? One phrase, divorce. Yeah. So this is a literal translation of the book, and that tells you the importance of studying. If you just read the book with the text, you would take that as Shafi'i madhab being, the same case in any language. So these three phrases in Arabic, which are, if you read the Arabic, it's talaq, firaq, and sarah. This reading. In English, divorce is the only one.
Explicit phrases do not require intention in order for a divorce to take place. Phrases which convey a meaning in addition to divorce are elusive. Elusive phrases require intention in order for a divorce. Sunnah and bid'ah divorce. Women are in two categories with respect to divorce. Those for whom divorce can be sunnah and bid'ah, they are women who menstruate. The sunnah is the divorce taking place during a period of purity in which intercourse has not occurred. The bid'ah is the divorce taking place during menstruation or a period of purity in which intercourse has occurred. Second, those for whom there is no sunnah or bid'ah for the divorce, they are four: a woman who is immature, is menopausal, or is pregnant. Or thirdly, has gained release through compensation prior to consummation.
That's all clear, inshallah. Explained in the last class. And we mentioned that whether the talaq is sunnah or bid'ah, it happens. But bid'ah talaq is haram to do.
Number of divorces. A free man possesses 3 divorces, a slave possesses 2. It is valid to make an exception when pronouncing a divorce, provided it is connected to the pronouncement. It is also valid to make divorce contingent upon the occurrence of an attribute or condition.
So, the first case, if someone says to their wife, I'll divorce you if you do this, okay? If his talking and the sentence is connected, then she only gets divorced if does that thing. But if he says, I'll divorce you, and then he was like, if you enter the house or something, doesn't count. Yeah? So if he stops, and then he decides to add a condition so that it doesn't happen, doesn't count. He has to be in the same.
Pronouncing divorce prior to the marriage does not take effect.
We mentioned that in last class, that one of the conditions of divorce is what? Is that it happens between a husband and wife, not a wife, even if he says to her, if I marry you, divorce, doesn't count.
Divorce initiated from 4 kinds of husbands does not take effect when he is immature, insane, asleep, or
Immature, so we said if for example, if a young kid is married, kids can get married. They can have a contract with certain conditions, but if they divorce, it doesn't count. Next one,
insane.
insane. It's clear that an insane person is no, like this is not a thing. So someone gets married and say they become insane later on. For example, let's say someone they get dementia, they lose their mind. Okay, they don't know what they're saying. And they say, for example, wouldn't count.
Asleep.
Sleep. So someone sleeps with that,
Coerced to do so.
and they force. And we said, what does force mean? Force means something severe. So they'll beat them severely, they'll kill them, they'll harm their wealth, things like that. And we said the only case that it does occur is if someone is drunk and they chose to drink, then it does.
Taking back one's wife. If the husband has divorced his wife once or twice, he may take back as long as the waiting period does not expire. If the waiting period expires, he can marry her with a new contract.
Waiting periods, we're going to talk about periods in the next class, inshallah. We'll start to talk about all different periods.
If the waiting period expires, he can marry her with a new contract. She will return with whatever number of divorces remain.
So if the period finishes, she doesn't have to marry someone else, but what has to happen, it has to be a new contract, a new mahar, all things again, plus it doesn't have to be divorced, it doesn't have to be.
If he divorces her 3 times, it remains unlawful for him until 5 conditions are met. Firstly, her waiting period from him expires.
Go on.
Secondly, another man marries her. Thirdly, the new marriage is consummated. Fourthly,
consummated means there's physical intercourse happening. So it has to be physical intercourse, not just foreplay. We have to be full intercourse, and this is the condition. And that's why a lady came to the Sayyidina also, and her husband had divorced her 3 times. Okay, and she had married another man. Once she married the second man, she was complaining to one husband. She thought that there would be a better choice after the husband. But she married a new man. She said, "No way. I want to go back to my husband. I can't deal with my new husband." She remembered how amazing her husband was. So she came to complain to Rasulullah. And her new husband came behind her. And she said to the Prophet that I can't deal with my new husband. And basically, he doesn't satisfy me at all. He's not able to even consummate the marriage. So Abu Bakr was very upset. He was in the room. He said, "How could you talk like that?" Rasulullah the Prophet said to her, "Look, I understand that you want to go back to your husband. There's no chance to ever go back until it happens. There's no other way. No other way until it happens." But he didn't use clear language, but he said, "Until you taste the sweetness of marriage," meaning that intimacy happens. Only then, if you divorce you after that, you can go back. If not, you don't have any choice to go back to your husband. 3 divorces is 3 divorces. There's no other way around.
Fourthly, she is divorced from the new husband. And fifthly, her waiting period from the new husband expires.
As well. The new husband, if you divorce her once, you just got to go back again, the same thing. So, because of this, it was a tradition of some people, if they really want to go back to the husband, they would have to marry someone, and they would pay that person to marry them, and then divorce them, and then get married again. And that kind of marriage is called Nikah Tahleel. What does that mean? The Nikah that allows you to become halal for your old husband. Now, in the hadith of Rasulullah says, he says, "La'an Allah al-muhallil wal-muhallal." Says that Allah Ta'ala curses the one who does marriage for basically in order to get married again, and the one who it happens for. And the majority of fuqaha, of scholars, they believe that if there's an agreement between 2 people to do that, someone says, "Look, I'll pay money, okay, whatever it is, just marry my old wife, and then consummate the marriage and then divorce. So I can go back. That the person deserves the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's haram. In the Shafi'i madhab, however, it's a bit different. The Shafi'i madhab, we always differentiate between a contract and agreements. So if it's just an agreement, someone says, why don't you marry so and so? I'll give you money, but it's just a promise. There's no contract, then it's not haram. It's like it's makruh. Okay? But if there's a contract, there's an agreement that says, basically, I marry you with the condition that you do this and that, then it's haram. Then you deserve the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the Shafi'i madhab, it all depends on the wording being in the contract. If it's just a virtual agreement, it doesn't count. It's not considered haram. Same thing with the other hadith. Prophet said that Nikah Shigar is not Shigar. Shigar is, and Abu Shuja is not going to mention these non-halal nikahs because it's a small group. That's basically when someone gets the person to marry their sister and then marry them up to his own sister as well. In the Shafi'i madhab, same thing. It's only haram if it's in the contract. It's part of mahar. I marry you for the mahar, basically, of or that you give me a sister. But if it's just an agreement, the same thing. Well, it says, why don't we, would you like to marry my sister? I have a sister as well. Just an agreement, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not haram, and there's no issue with that. So as long as the conditions are lawful, they're looking at intentions, virtual agreements, anything like that doesn't matter. We are looking at that in the matter. The only thing we worry about is the actual contract, the wording of the contract. And that's why there's no need for us to even study in small books like this. Why? Because alhamdulillah, as long as we know the conditions, once you put the conditions of the nikah at the beginning of the contract, khalas, it counts. So anyway, in the Shafi'i madhab, like you said, as long as the second marriage ends and he hasn't taken her back, then the first husband can go back to his wife. And of course, if someone pays another person or agrees with them to marry their ex-wife and then divorce her, they don't have to divorce. Okay, so there's always that you can say that doubt that the person might keep her. And it's happened in the past, in some cases where the person says, marry them and divorce them and get back to each other. Once they got married, they actually liked each other. And the man got upset, said, we agreed you divorce my ex-wife. He said, first ask her if she wants to divorce, and she said, no way, you're much better than my wife. So it's these things we can't really, there's no way you can actually, condition them or make them as you want. Contracts and stuff, they just happen naturally and according to the conditions. And then people, if they change their mind, it's not up to us. We don't look into that in Sharia, we look into the wording and the sort of.
Forswearing one's wife. If the husband forswears having...
So forswearing, we said that's in Arabic, al-ila, yeah? Al-ila, we said it's one of the things that they used to do in the Jahiliyyah before Islam.
If the husband forswears having intercourse with his wife forever, or for a period exceeding 4 months, he has indeed forsworn. If she requests separation, he is left alone for 4 months. He then chooses between breaking his oath and making an expiation or divorce. If he refuses, the judge issues a divorce order.
So you don't get a divorce straight away, no. There has to be some judge that does that. But they don't separate just because, no, that.
Likening one's wife to one's mother.
Okay, now, this is today's class. We'll stop there, inshallah. So today's class is about الظهار. الظهار. And the translation we said is likening one's wife to their mother. If anyone memorizes the last 3 juz of the Quran, which surah is Dhihar mentioned in? Surah Mujadila, yeah? قد سمع الله قول التي تجادلك في زوجها وتشتكي إلى الله والله يسمع تحاوركما إن الله سميع الذين يظاهرون منكم من نسائهم. So the word Thihar is mentioned. What's Thihar? Thihar is also a practice of Jahiliyyah before Islam. Okay, similar to Ila, Thihar is also something that used to happen in Jahiliyyah. Now, Inshallah, we don't need to go into hadith here, but just to give a bit of context to the Dhihar. This hadith is the hadith of Khawla radiallahu anha, and she was one of the pious Sahabiyat. She was married to her cousin, who was known as Aus ibn Samit. Okay, so she said, it was concerning me and Aus that Allah Ta'ala revealed the beginning of Surah Mujadila. She said, I was married to him, and he was an old man who was bad tempered. So one day he came back, okay, and she argued with him. And he entered the house and straight away Bismillah, doesn't argue. Okay, and he was in a good mood. So he became angry and he said to her, he used the word he used to use in Jahiliyyah. The same word he used to always use in the time of Jahiliyyah. Before Islam, if someone said this to what happened? That would consider them to be haram forever. By this wording, before Islam. Okay? So he said to her, you are to me as the back of my mother. Okay? The back, you know, the backbone, back, it's always referred to as basically my mother. You are like my mother. The back is one of the most important parts of the person. It's what keeps them. And then he left. He was so angry. So he said that and he walked out. Okay? And he sat in the meeting place of his people. So outside the house, they'll be like, if you're living on a compound, there'll be like a sitting area, something like that. Similar to that. That's how you can imagine it. So he sat there and then he came back in. And he wanted to be physical. Okay? So he wanted to resume marital relations with me. She said, no way. He said, no way, by the one in whose hand is the soul of Khawla. Her name was Khawla. She said, you will never get what you want from me. After saying what you said, until Allah Ta'ala eventually decided. He said, I'm going to fight, I don't care, but no way you'll ever touch me until the Prophet ﷺ judges between us. So he tried to force her, but she was able to resist because she was a young woman and he was an older man. That's what it says. So what did she do? She pushed him away and ran to the Prophet straight away. Okay? So she didn't even have clothes to go cover herself with. So she borrowed a cloak from one of her neighbors and ran to the Prophet straight away. Okay? And she sat before the Prophet in front of him. And she told him what happened. And began to complain. So she was very hurt emotionally. So she didn't just say the Prophet, but she was actually complaining to the Prophet. Okay? And she wasn't hiding her emotions from the Prophet. I'm just saying, he gets angry, he always says things to me, his temper is bad, Ya Rasulullah, stuff like that. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Oh Khawla, your cousin is an old man, so fear Allah Ta'ala with God. Take it easy on him. And she was sitting there suddenly, all of a sudden happens, Prophet he enters a state where wahi comes. Revelation comes. Okay? So the Prophet he didn't judge between the men. He was sitting there and then wahi came. So he was overcome as usual in the Quran is revealed. Everyone knew that now Quran is being revealed to say his head was down. And when it was over, he raised his head. He says, Ya Khawla, Allah Ta'ala has revealed Quran concerning you and your husband. Okay? What does Allah Ta'ala say in the Quran? قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ. Allah Ta'ala has heard the speech. Okay? القول التي تجادلك, the speech of the one who is arguing with you or complaining to you concerning husband. The narrator of the hadith says, Wallahi, we couldn't even hear her voice from the house. She was whispering to the Prophet. No one could hear her. So Allah Ta'ala is saying, Allah has heard her complaints. No matter how you raise your voice or not, Allah Ta'ala says, there's no difference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Voice is something that affects us as human beings. Allah Ta'ala doesn't have these limits like mankind. So Allah Ta'ala has heard the speech of the one who argues with you concerning your husband, and she directs her complaint to Allah. She's complaining to Allah Ta'ala about her husband. Even though he's old, but she still has, a valid point. And Allah Ta'ala hears the dialogue. Indeed, Allah Ta'ala is hearing us. Then he says, those who pronounce Dhihar, saying what we just said now, saying to their wife that you are like my back of my mother, amongst you from their wives, they are not considered their mothers. So the person in the Quran Allah Ta'ala's first ruling is that even if they say this, in Islam it's not jahiliyyah. In Islam you can't make what's halal, haram, haram, halal. It's not up to you. Okay? So even if you try to do that, it doesn't count. That's the first thing. Their mothers are none but those who gave birth to them. Okay? And indeed they are saying a statement of falsehood. And indeed Allah Ta'ala is forgiving. They have to make tawbah. It's very dangerous. Our scholars will take in fact, they say it's one of the major sins to say this to your wife. Not a small sin, a major sin. Okay? And then Allah Ta'ala says, the ones who pronounce Thihar from their wives, and then wish to go back to what we said, to take back their words. Okay? What do they have to do? Allah Ta'ala mentioned what they have to do. Okay? Going back is called what? Going back is called al-awd. It's called al-awd. Go back. There's certain conditions for going back. We'll take them in our class. Okay? Anyway, Prophet ﷺ, once that happened, he told Khawla to go back to your husband and tell him to do 1, 2, 3 if he wants to go back. Okay? And the rulings in the Quran are what? That first thing you free a slave. You buy a slave, you free them. So Ya Rasulullah, he's not able to do that. He said they let him fast for 2 consecutive months. She said, Ya Rasulullah, he's an old man. Can't do that. So let him feed 64 people. She said, Ya Rasulullah, he doesn't have that much. He said, then we will help him. Prophet ﷺ donated, okay, with a large amount of dates. And then she said, I will help him with another. Prophet ﷺ, you have done right and done well. Go give the charity on his behalf and take care of your husband or your cousin. So that's how the problem is given. Now, subhanAllah, one more thing we mentioned before we go back to the book of Abu Shuja. Ibn Kathir, in his tafsir, he mentions that Sayyidina Umar, at the end of his life, that a man said to Sayyidina Umar, when he saw him welcome Khawla and listen to her, she was just Umar, at the end of his life, she would go, any complaints she had, she would go mention to Umar, and he would say, he said, Ya Umar, you left a man of Quraysh, you left like important people, and you go listen to this old woman. He said, word to you, this is the woman who Allah Ta'ala listened to. This is Khawla. He said, by Allah, if she did not leave me until night, I would not leave her until she had got what she came for, unless the time of prayer came. In which case I would pray and then come back and listen to her until she's got what she came for. So the Sahaba used to treat her very carefully after this. So Allah, this lady, she complained to Allah Ta'ala, sent down Quran. Alas, that's a red flag that we're never going to mess with anyone. Anyway. So Abu Shuja, he mentions Thihar after Ida. Why? Because they're both haram. They're both haram to do. Okay, it's not an option to say any of these two things to your wife in Islam. There are rulings if you say it, but it's haram. The first thing is it's haram, and if you do, you have to make tawbah. Second thing, they are both actions that the people of Jahiliyyah before Islam used to use to punish their wives. Okay, so khalas, that's happening. That has to be held, as hostages basically from these words. And this used to be considered as divorce in the time of Jahiliyyah. So in Islam, so the scholars mentioned after divorce, because it's not divorce, it has different rules in Islam. Now, as you can hear, the word Thihar comes from the word Zahar in Arabic, which means back. Because he said you are like the back of your mother, even though back is not a condition. You say any part of your mother, it counts. Okay. So what is Thihar? The definition of Thihar is for a husband to say or to liken their wife to one of their mahrams, whether it's a mother or anyone else, one of their mahrams. Okay? In relation for being prohibited. You say, Wallahi, you are so kind just like my mother. That's not Thihar. Okay? Or, you're exactly like my mom in the way she cooks this food or something. Okay? That's not Thihar. Okay? But if you liken them to any of your mahrams, mother, daughter, sister, okay, in regard to being prohibited, how it's haram, that is when it's considered Thihar and all these rulings apply to it. Okay? So Thihar is made up from 4 parts. The first thing is al-mudahir, the person doing the dhihar, which is the husband. Okay? And then al-mudahara minha, the person dhihar has been done to. Then al-mushabbaha biha, the person who is likened, who she is likened to. Okay? And then as-sigha, which is the wording. These four things are what dhihar is made up from. These are what dhihar is made up. Just like divorce, you don't need witnesses, you don't need anything. If they happen between two people, the ruling is that they happen. Okay. So what's the condition of the husband? Very simple. The condition of a husband is to be a husband. Number two, who's able to divorce his family. Some husbands, they can't divorce their wife. Yes? They say things to wife doesn't count. Most husbands, what they say counts. So if it's a husband who's able to divorce their wife, if they say the words of the heart, it counts. If they say the words of the heart, it counts. Okay? That's simple. What are the conditions of the wife? The condition is that she is a legitimate Islamic wife. So the conditions of nikah all apply to her. There's no mistake in the contract, something like that. Then the dhihar applies to the wife if it happens. Okay. So these conditions are very simple. The person who the wife is being likened to has many conditions. Okay? Has many conditions. This is where we need to say in detail. Of course, they must be female. Someone says, "You are like my brother." It's haram. Even you're like so and so. Any man. Haram for a man to marry a man. It's haram. It doesn't count. There's no nikah that can happen. So if someone likens the wife to a female, it's not very hard. Okay, to a male. It has to be a female. It has to be likened to either the whole person. So you say, like my mother, my sister, my daughter, my aunt, or a part of her body. Like what? Like back, head, stomach, leg, things like that. If it's a part of the body that's not connected to her, something that basically, comes and goes. You say, for example, like tears, milk, or inner parts of the body that you can't physically see, like liver or heart. These things don't count. Why? Generally, they're not parts of the body that are in the place of being haram. No one even refers to them as being haram. You don't have anything to do with. They have nothing to do with even intimacy or anything like this. These are parts of the body that basically, are just there for the body to function. So these things don't count for the heart. It has to be a physical part of the body that you can see. Foot, hand, shoulder, arm, head, whatever it is. Even if it's a small part of the body, but it has to be this part of the body. The next condition is that the person who is likened to or is likened to a part of her is a mahram. Okay? What does a mahram mean? A mahram in dhihar is a little bit different to a mahram in nikah. Slightly different. Not really, but there's a bit of detail. So, mother, daughter, sister, grandmother. Okay? The father's wife, if the father was married to her before the birth of the son. So once the son was born, she was already haram. Okay? She was already haram. His whole life she was haram. Sister from milk, if she fed before his birth. Same thing. So she's always haram since he was born. That way, when he says you are like her, it's clear he's saying you're like someone who was haram forever. Okay? These are the conditions of the person who is the wife being likened. Okay. The wording of the house. So it has to be a wording that gives either the meaning clearly, so there's no other way to understand it, or a metaphor with intention. Just like divorce, there's either one of these two choices. So if he says you are, or a part of you are, like so and so, or like a part of so and so, whether you use the whole person or part of the person, you're referring to the person. So it says your back is like my mother's back, counts. You are like my mother's back, counts. Okay? So that all counts to being dhihar. Or it's a metaphor that has the same meaning. Okay? Like it says, you are like my mother. You're like my mother. Didn't say you're back like her. You're like my mother. It could mean, you're kind of like her, something like that. And it could mean that you're haram. Okay? But it says you're upon me, like my mother's back, or aliyya, something like that. Then it's pity, dhihar. Okay? Or he said you have the same eyes as my mother, the same head, or something like that. That all means intention. Okay? Needs intention. If he says, well, you're stubborn like my mother, you have the same head, that doesn't count as dhihar. Yeah? It can be done in writing if there is intention also. Intention is a condition for writing. Same as divorce. Yeah? Someone writes divorce, doesn't count without intention. Even if it's clear, it needs intention. Okay? And then the last thing is, can be done in sign language only for someone who can't speak if it's clear sign language. You know, it's agreed upon that sign language counts. Okay. What are the rulings? The Islamic rulings regarding dhihar. Dhihar, like I said, is not a sin, but it's a major sin. And the reason it's one of the greatest sins is that it involves an attempt to change the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the scholars say it's actually just there, just under disbelief, just under the kufr. Okay, if a person actually meant to change the word, the rule of Allah, he could leave Islam. So because of that attempt, it's very dangerous. That's why it's one of the major sins. Islam, say this your word. Okay. All right. Now, how can one go back in the words? Awd. Allah has in the Quran, ثُمَّ يَعُودُونَ. Then they go back from this. Okay. So a condition. Now, once dhihar happens, what happens? Okay. The person either divorces their wife or goes back in their word and doesn't divorce them. Okay. And if you go back in your word, you're gonna have to expiate. All right. So going back is considered out. There's only two choices here: you go back or you divorce. Allah says in the Quran, the people who do that, وَالَّذِينَ يُظَاهِرُونَ. Okay. ثُمَّ يَعُودُ. Then they go back in their words. They must free a slave. If not, fast 2 months. If not, feed 64 people. Okay. So the ayah says the people who go back. So this expiation only happens when going back happens. Okay. So now we want to understand what awd means. First thing, if the dhihar was temporary, okay, temporary. So he said, for this month, you are upon me like my mother's back for a month. Okay. If the husband is intimate in that month, he must expiate. If not, no other rulings apply other than anything to Allah Ta'ala. If the month passes, khalas. It's done. There's nothing he has to do. If there's no intimacy in that month, then she goes back. Number 2. If it's not temporary, okay? So if the wife is a wife that Islamically she can be taken back, if divorce happens, then awd also is considered taking over. If she is someone who cannot be taken back if divorce happens, then basically the time that it takes to divorce someone divorce their wife, the time that it takes to divorce their wife, if they don't divorce in that period, then it's considered taking her back. Okay. So it's haram for the husband to have intimacy with his wife after awd and before expiating. After awd and before expiating. Inshallah, we're going to read the text of Shujaa now and understand how to do awd and all the details of it, inshallah.
Likening one's wife to one's mother. Likening one's wife to one's mother, dhihar, is when a man says to his wife, to me you are akin to my mother. If he says this and does not follow it with a divorce, he has gone against this comparison and must make an expiation. The expiation. The expiation is emancipating a Muslim slave free from defects which would prevent the slave from working and earning a living. If one is not found, the husband fasts 2 months consecutively. If he is unable to fast the 2 months, he gives food to 60 of the poor, 1 mud each. It is not permissible to have intercourse with the wife until the expiation is made.
Okay. So if a person does out and then expiates, they can go back to the marriage normally, inshallah ta'ala, and there's nothing wrong with it. After the book of Thihar, Abu Shuja, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions the book of Li'an. Li'an comes from the word la'an, which is to swear. Oh, sorry, to curse. And the definition of li'an is 5 words that are only allowed for someone in a necessity to either distance themselves from someone who committed filth on their bed or to disown a child. Okay? So if a husband finds out that clear cheating has happened, it is permissible in this case only to use li'an. But it's better to never use it. It's better if a person knows that haram happened to not expose their wife, but to just divorce them and leave them without li'an. The only case it's needed and there's no other way about it is if there's a child that comes from that marriage and the husband needs to disown the child, only then should it be used. Okay. Li'an also has a story behind it. Okay. So there's a hadith narrated by Sahl ibn Sa'd al-Sa'idi radiyallahu anhu, and he says that Uwaymir al-Ajlani came to Asim ibn Adi al-Ansari, and he says, "Ya Asim, I have a question. Tell me if a man sees his wife with another man, should he kill him? Thereupon he would kill him in qasas. If anyone kills someone, the punishment is the death penalty. Or what should he do? Ya Asim, ask Rasulullah about that." So Asim asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah disliked the question and considered it disgraceful. So Asim got very overwhelmed and he returned to his family. Uwaymir came to him. He says, "Ya Asim, what did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say to you?" He said, "You never bring good to me. Allah Ta'ala's Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam disliked to hear the problem which you asked about." Uwaymir said, "By Allah, I will not leave the matter until I ask him about it." So Uwaymir proceeded until he came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was in the midst of people, had people all around him. And he said, "Ya Rasulullah, if a man finds his wife with another man," this is a very hard question to ask, "should he kill him?" Thereupon he would kill him. Or otherwise, what should he do? Rasulullah said, Allah Ta'ala has revealed Quran. Has revealed the ruling. Has revealed a ruling concerning the question of you and your wife. Go bring your wife. Now. So they both carried out the judgment of li'an. Which surah is talking about? Surah An-Nur. The first page in Surah An-Nur. Okay? And they did it while the narrator was present amongst the people. When both of them had finished, Uwaymir said, "Ya Rasulullah, if I keep my wife now, then I told a lie." So he divorced his wife then. So they both swore by Allah that nothing happened. That he swore that something happened, and she swore that nothing happened. So he said, "I'm not divorced in that case." So he pronounced divorce in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam before the Prophet even told him to do so, and then it became the tradition that anyone in that case would divorce. Okay, so the definition of li'an, like we said, it comes from the linguistic word of la'an, which is cursing, and it's like I said, It's when a person asks for the curse of Allah Ta'ala to be upon them if they are lying. That's what it is. Okay. So it's the 4 oath-based testimonies of the husband against his wife, which he concludes with saying that he asked Allah Ta'ala to curse himself if he was lying. And the 4th oath-based testimony of the wife, denying the accusation of her husband and asking that Allah Ta'ala's anger is upon her if her husband was telling the truth. That's mentioned in Surah. Okay. Now, what's the point of this? Okay, what do we benefit from? If the husband takes this oath, okay, this oath can only happen after what? After accusing her for haram, doing haram. If someone accuses a lady of doing haram, what happens in Islam? They consider it aqad. Okay, they need to be punished by saying any Muslim woman has done haram. Immediately you deserve punishment. Immediately you deserve a major punishment, and your rank in society drops also. Okay, you're not allowed, your testimony is not accepted, so many things are not accepted from you, so many women just by saying that, anything. Now people online, all that is severely haram. The only way the husband get out of it is by this. By putting yourself in the danger of getting the curse of Allah. The only way to get out of it. Okay? And the wife, of course, by swearing, she also is no longer in the place of being accused by that. And also what happens is that the marriage ends for good. There's no way to get back in this life nor the next life. So inshallah, we'll talk about it in a minute. So the pillars of li'an are what? Husband, wife, and wording. These are 3 things. Okay? Husband and wife and wording. Okay? So the husband and wife need to be mature in their minds, and the wife must be muhsana. What's that mean? Non-virgin. Okay? Conditions of li'an. The first condition is that husband does qadh, which means slander. Okay? So slander specific to his wife's honor before doing the li'an. So he says these words, and then all of a sudden he deserves the punishment of qadh. And then once the oath happens, so once qadh happens, once he accuses his wife, he deserves to be punished by being whipped. Okay? And his testimony is refused, and many other rules. Qadh itself is also 2 types. How it happens? This is the precondition for li'an. Okay? It's either sarih, so clear words, like saying, oh, the one who committed such and such an act, okay? Or you have committed this. That's clear. Doesn't need an intention. Once a person says that, khalas, the ruling applies to them. Or a metaphor with intention. Like if he says you're not a virgin, or you like to be with other people, something like that, then if his intention was not, then it counts. Okay? And the only time li'an can occur, even if there's no slander, is to disown a child. In that case, he doesn't have to talk about his wife. He just can say that, for example, this kid is not mine, and he'll swear by Allah that the kid is not his. That's it. Without having to accuse the wife. You could say, for example, there was a mistake that happened unintentionally, and the kid was the result of this. She might not be sinful herself, but something by accident happened. Say, the husband and wife were mixed up. They thought they were different people, for example, something like that. So it's nothing to do with the wife. He's just talking about the child. In that case, there's no slander. Other than that case, slander has to happen first before li'an can happen. Okay. Second condition is li'an must be done by the order of an Islamic judge. It can't happen today just between us. We can't just 2 people do li'an. We can't. 2 people have a problem. The only way out of it is divorce. That's it. To do li'an, there's a condition, it has to be in front of an Islamic judge, and the judge has to be the one who tells them what to say. He has to say it, like they have to basically repeat after him. That's how it is. No other way around it. Okay? The third condition is that li'an is repeated after the judge's talqeen or indoctrination. So he says the words and they say exactly after him. Just like in Nikah. You talk after the Imam, same thing. Okay? Fourth condition is that all the 5 words are said together with no long breaks. One after another. 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. Okay? All right. So the example of li'an is that a husband is ordered by the Islamic judge or by the deputy of the judge. Okay, after slandering his wife with zina, to say that he witnesses by Allah Ta'ala that he is truthful in the slander that he said about so and so he names her. Okay, that's if she's not there. If she's there, he has to point her. You should point her. Okay, say this person. And then, if there's a kid that came out of this relation, then also he should also mention the kid. And in the 5th oath that he takes, just before he says the word, the Islamic judge comes and says, by the way, be careful. Now you are going to put yourself under danger of receiving the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The judge warns him before he says the word. Okay. In fiqh, they say also what the judge should do is he should get someone, the judge has a team of people working with him, to put his hand on the husband's mouth before he talks, to remind him, wake up, don't be silly, be careful, what you're saying is very dangerous now. Okay, so the judge warns him the last time and gets someone to even put his hand on the husband's mouth and say, stop. Okay, let him think about it. Okay, and he say, okay, and then if he still wants to go ahead, then he says that the curse of Allah Ta'ala is upon him if he is a liar in regard to the accusation he said about his wife. Okay. Also, our scholars say in fiqh, li'an should be done in the most pure, respectful places on the face of the earth. So it should be done in a masjid. Why? This is all to make it more severe, more serious, that a person doesn't take it easily. Okay? So it should be done in a masjid and on top of the member in the masjid. Okay? And it should be done on Friday after Asr prayer, the most sacred times. Okay? And it should be done with lots of people, the group of people to witness. And minimum people should be 4 people. Okay? Now, if li'an is regarding a kid that's not his, what does he say? He says that he swears by Allah Ta'ala that he is truthful in accusing the intimacy that happened from his wife, okay, to be with other than him. So it doesn't say that she committed zina, for example. Let's say there was a mistake or there was a mix between husband and wife, but he swears that it happened with other than him, basically. Okay, and that this kid is not his. Okay, and in this case, if he's denouncing the kid, in this case, the wife doesn't have to say anything back. Why? Because by him taking this oath, nothing occurs to the wife. So the only time the wife has to respond, she wants to basically remove what she was accused with, is if he's accusing her of zina. If not, she doesn't have to respond because he's not saying that she did anything wrong. All he's saying is that the kid is not his. In that case, she doesn't have to say anything. But khalas, once he does that, we can judge that this is not his kid anymore. And the rulings of father and kid don't apply. So what happened? What's the outcome of li'an? Number 1, the husband no longer deserves the punishment of slander in Islam. Number 2, the wife becomes accused until she herself does li'an. Okay. So if she says, "Wallah, he was true when he said, I'm happy to take the punishment," then خلاص. Nothing goes to the husband. If she says no, he's lying, she has to take the same oath mentioned in Surah in the Quran. The same oath I mentioned, she has to take them. Number 3, the marriage ends indefinitely, and there's no exemption, no circumstance where either can go back to the other, or go, even if they say, "Wallahi, we were lying, we take back what we said," doesn't matter. They are haram for each other for good in dunya and akhirah, and despite the next life, even in Jannah, they can't be together. Just by saying these words, even if they were lying, they agreed to lie, doesn't matter. Okay. Also, there's no rulings of husband and wife that apply anymore. From that moment, they're haram. They're not married. Okay. So there's no nafaqah. He doesn't have to pay for it. Even if she's pregnant, خلاص. He's excluding that she's not his wife anymore. خلاص. They can't inherit each other. And the husband, from that moment, he can marry anyone. He was not allowed to marry while she was with him, say Haditha or anyone else. خلاص. She's not considered his wife anymore. So this is all called tahrim ala ta'bid, that she is forbidden for good, forever. And even if she became a slave somehow, and he bought her, he still couldn't be intimate. There's no way they could ever be together, ever. Okay. In intimacy, even if he bought her to own her, he can't be intimate. If the wife does li'an, what are the rulings that apply? What happens? Okay. So, first of all, let's read what the wife has to say, and then inshallah ta'ala, we'll talk about what happens. So, if the wife will be brought forward also, and the Islamic judge or his deputy will be there in the masjid as well, and then and if she is on her period, she is not able to enter the masjid, should stand at the door of the masjid. Okay, so it should be also in a sacred place. And then she would say 4 times she would repeat that she witnesses, she asks Allah Ta'ala to witness that so and so. Okay. And then she would, like, this person, if he's there. If not, she would mention him by his name. Is a liar in regard to what he accused me with of zina. And the 5th time, the judge also warns her, and he tells any other lady who works under him to put her hand on her mouth to scare her. Okay, and he tells her that, be careful, the anger of Allah, it's even worse than the la'na of Allah Ta'ala, might come upon you right now. Okay, the anger of Allah Ta'ala will be upon you if your husband is truthful. Okay, so she would ask for the anger of Allah Ta'ala to be upon her if he is truthful in what he said. So she doesn't say if I lied, she says if he was truthful. That's it. Okay. And then that's it. Now, basically, these wordings in the letters that we mentioned have to be mentioned also. The husband can't say anger, she can't say, they have to be done literally, just mentioned as mentioned in the Quran, many other conditions. Now, also, our scholars mentioned that it has to be, they have to use the word Allah, not any other name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very specific. Okay. SubhanAllah, in the Sunnah, there's many ahadith that a few incidents happened in the time of Rasulullah of li'an. Few incidents. Okay. And SubhanAllah, in one incident, both of them considered the other to be lying. Okay. And SubhanAllah, the Sahabi even accused her for being intimate with a certain person, and the baby came out looking exactly like that person, exactly like that person. And everyone, there was all these proofs to prove that the kid was the son of that person. And just before she took the oath that he was lying, she was hesitant, and she was about to not say anything. But then she said, "No way." She said, "If I go back now, people are gonna talk about me, so now I'll go ahead and ask for the anger of Allah." This is all mentioned in hadith. And still, Rasulullah judged according to her words. Khalas. We don't look at people's intentions. We don't look at other facts. We don't try to look behind or maybe they did this. Khalas. They said that the Sharia now confirms that they are haram for each other. That's it. We don't have to look into the state of either of them, and we leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wants to forgive them, he forgives them. He wants to punish them, subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not our job. We read the book of al-Li'an, inshallah.
Charging one's wife with adultery. If a husband charges his wife with adultery, he is subject to punishment for charging another with adultery unless he brings proof or makes a public imprecation واللعان against her. If he chooses to make public imprecation, he says while in the presence of the judge and the group while standing on the minbar, I bear witness to Allah that I am truthful in charging my wife so and so with fornication, and that this child is a product of adultery and not mine. He says this 4 times. The 5th time, after the judge warns him of the consequences of lying, he says, and may the curse of Allah be upon me if I am a liar.
So when we read this, bro, careful, we don't say me. Yeah? We don't say me. We say him, or we say the one who is far away. Al-Ba'id. Yeah? So even when we read this, the hadith or something, we'll be careful, we don't say me. Even though inshallah nothing happens to you, but this is one of the adab, one of the manners of reading these things, that we use a different wording when we're saying these words, because it's very serious. We say him, or one who is far away, something like that.
5 rulings are associated with his public imprecation. Firstly, he is no longer subject to punishment for charging his wife with adultery. Secondly, the wife becomes subject to punishment for adultery. Third, the marriage is terminated. Fourth, the child is negated. And fifthly, they are eternally unlawful to one another. She ceases being subject to punishment for adultery if she performs a counter imprecation by saying, she bears witness that so and so is a liar and is charging her with adultery. She says this 4 times. The 5th time, after the judge warns her of the consequences of lying, she says, and may the wrath of Allah be upon her if she is a liar.
Okay, so inshallah, that's the book of al-Li'an. Inshallah, next class, we will take the book of Al-Iddah, which is the book of periods, different waiting periods in Islam, and a lot of them will be reminding us of different sections we studied, the divorce, other things. Every one of them has a certain waiting period. That will take detail, inshallah ta'ala, in our next class. Next class is on the 29th, yes? So is it suitable that we do it a bit earlier? Inshallah. It'll be school holidays. So maybe an hour or 2 earlier. This is a very special guest and pick up from the airport, inshallah. Inshallah we'll confirm, but most likely we'll try to do it a bit earlier next week, next class, inshallah. Just for that one hour, inshallah. Any other questions or anything before we? Can a woman make her husband haram? Can she divorce her husband? She can. She can divorce him. Yeah. Has these things happen from the husband? Yeah. So the husband is the one who has divorce in his hand. The same case, he has all the other rulings that he applied to him. And that's why in Islam we say al-isma biyad ar-rajul. What's isma mean? Basically the bound of marriage, or the ownership of the of the sanctity of marriage is in the hand of the husband. He's the one who can only break it or anything else. Even in the Shafi'i madhab, even if a wife pays money for him to divorce her, has to happen from husband. The only case where it can happen from a third party is not from the wife. Never can be from the wife. Is from a judge. He acts as he forces the husband